up our next speaker is Drew Fiorionelli of Datamark, excuse me. Tell your data story, the evolution of the GIS professional. Drew, are you available?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited. Look, I love this event. This is so much fun for me. Let me get my screen shared out for you folks so that you can actually see what I'm talking about. All right, guys, let's get rolling. All right, so as Kim said, my name is Drew Fiorionelli. I am one of the public safety GIS professionals with Datamark, and I'm here today to talk to you about telling your data story, really the evolution of the GIS professional. And with me today, sorry, Jeff, I didn't put your slide on. I had some travel issues this morning, but had my colleague Jeff Ledbetter on with me, who you guys met a couple of times last week. So Jeff will be providing color commentary for me today as we look at going beyond the map as GIS professionals, really looking at this landscape of GIS to geospatial, which is really this evolution of the geospatial community that started, 5 to 7 years ago, that we're really starting to experience now, and is something that we need to be aware of. This idea of becoming a data professional, and what does that mean? We're going to look at data quality across multiple system integrations, and then really look at data science and next generation 911. So to understand where we are, we need to understand where we've come from. So GIS has been around for not that long when we think of technology versus the evolution and the advancements we've seen in GIS, right? It's only been around since the 1960s. Oddly enough, so is 911. Anyway, but GIS was really developed for this land management inventory, for managing land data. It started in Canada and then migrated its way to the States. In the 70s, you saw this expansion of GIS into universities to really manage university data, again, land data. And then in the 80s, you saw the evolution into Esri, so the creation of Esri, the Environmental Systems Research Institute, Eritis, M&S Computing, Bentley, CAD Systems. So over that 20-year time frame, you saw things evolve from spreadsheets to visualization and digital. But it was really to support this aspect of turning the 3D environment, so everything that we could see out of our window, into something that would fit on a computer screen or a spreadsheet, and then print it with some colors on it. Maybe. When did color printers start? But the idea was visualizing a 4D and 3D environment in a 2D space and understanding what was there. So relating space to itself, because space is valuable and space is important. And we know that space is special, or spatial is special. Excuse the accent. If it sounded like special is special, it's because I'm from the South, right? But so we were identifying the value of location then, but it was really for a solitary purpose: land management, assessing value to land, and knowing where land was and who owned it, right? It's far from where it is today, and we're going to talk about that because we have to think beyond the map. Please raise your hand if, as a GIS professional, you've been out and about, you're having a very social conversation, and you're like, hey, what do you do for a living? I do GIS. What's that? I make maps. How many of you have said that? I've said it. Love it. We've all said that because it's the easiest way for us to tell people what we do, that's easily identifiable. The majority of people can identify with a map, right? It's something that we can hold. It's got colors on it. We grew up learning how to read atlases. That was a map. But who has ever answered that question with, I'm a cartographer? Unless you're a cartographer, then I get it. As the GIS professor, I love it. Friend, I've never answered that question with, I'm a cartographer, because so much of what we do in GIS is more than just cartography. It's a component of what we do, right? We involve scientific method, color theory, data analysis, data collection, all of these other components that go into telling that story, which then becomes that map, that paper product that we're able to print and share with people to tell that story, right? Because we are more data focused. while the map is great and how the map looks is great, we put a lot of value and a lot of interest into the data that goes into telling the story, which then dictates how we design and develop that story using methods like analytics and modeling, and then become innovative with how we think about presenting the data in a flat format that's 2D. Can we throw some 3D on it? Can we build out some sort of web application to share the story and tell this story, right? So everything that we do that goes into making the map, we're really thinking beyond the map, because we're thinking of how that's going to be used to make decisions. It's intelligence, right? And that's where we get to this idea of going from GIS to geospatial. No, everyone's heard of geospatial intelligence. Well, please argue with me that a map or anything that we do in GIS is not an intelligence product, right? All of the stuff that we do is going to tell a story, to make decisions, to inform people. That's intelligence, right? So this concept of moving beyond the map and thinking beyond GIS, how the majority of people associate GIS right now, is really something we have to focus on moving forward, and we've started to. And where you see this being supported in the community is really this idea of thinking about data differently than points, lines, and polygons and imagery. And it's getting into these intelligent components like location intelligence, geospatial intelligence, business intelligence. And we're seeing GIS infiltrate new markets like finance, natural resources, and utilities, and public safety to a different level than we normally have seen GIS interact with public safety, right? Yes, sure. For years, we've provided data to CAD systems to provide these CAD maps that provide location awareness in some sense, depending on how it's set up. But now in next generation 911, we're integrating GIS and geospatial into a decision-making process to identify where to send the call and how to route that call. That is, wow, that's crazy to think. When I started in GIS, I may as well have been using a crayon, right? I may have been using a very small little calculator. I wouldn't say a TI-82 because this is way before TI-82s existed, right? So becoming a data professional, the GIS professional is being asked to do more than just think about the map now. We're thinking about managing data differently. We're focusing our shift away from color theory and visualization to data quality, data accuracy, the timeliness of data, and data management to support these new processes that are asking us of our data. We have to be creative problem solvers and continue to push the boundaries of what thinking spatially and geospatial thinking looks like years ahead. We have to envision where this could go, because this is typically what we always do, right? Some of the most promising areas for the future development of GIS include 3D GIS to create more, I don't know what that word is. Can somebody tell me what that word is?
Nuance.
Thank you. Again, so I'll tell you, I've been up since 4 o'clock and was in an airport for quite a while this morning. So thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Nuance visualization.
Yeah.
Jeff has got me.
Different
I love
angle.
it. Right. We're thinking about location-based augmented reality applications, creating navigation systems for self-driving cars that's using GIS data to make those decisions and incorporate with AI and machine learning, and then really starting to explore and figure out mapping indoor environments and assessing that value. All involves thinking about data and how data is being used, right? And it's pushing us to think beyond the map because it's telling a different story now. But there are challenges that come with this, and it means we also have to think outside of our norm. Whether we are in local government GIS, our regional capacity supporting GIS, or even at a state level or at a federal level supporting geospatial efforts for our organizations. Because we're implementing and introducing new challenges with managing multiple data sets across these organizations. Because each organization has their own standards, requirements, and recommendations. We're seeing that really affect us locally because of the migration and the conversations with next generation 911, right? That's something that directly impacts all of us, whether it's direct right now because we're in the throes of that, or it's something that you've started the conversation, or you've identified it's coming. So it's not really affecting you yet. So maybe you're not really having those conversations at a high level right now because you're waiting on the state to make a decision, or you're waiting on some funding to become available so that you can have the conversations of what to do. Well, not only are there different standards, requirements, and recommendations for supporting data for 911, well, what about your assessor's office, your planning departments, your building departments? They're all using GIS too to support their efforts that have their own standards, recommendations, and requirements. So when we're thinking about this evolution, we have to really understand how the data that exists in a centralized location can successfully support a multi-departmental organization. And do we have the communication established now to support that, the workflows to establish that and maintain it? Or is that something that we need to identify and develop out and evolve? Right? We've got to think differently about this because we are the professionals. We're the ones that are being asked to do this. And it can be a heavy lift for us because it's easy, I've done this, I've been there. It's easy for me to get hyper focused on the next big thing that I need to prepare for, that I forget about where we currently are. And that oversight could cause some major malfunctions down the road if I wait too long to pull it into the conversation, or at least be aware of it, which is why I want to build solid teams around me. I can't operate in this new GIS environment as a lone ranger. I know a lot about, I know a little about a lot, but how much better is it if I have folks like Fred, folks like Jeff, folks like Kim, all at the table with me that are bringing their own expertise, their own experience to the table. So when I go off on my rant about how valuable having half addresses could be to the community, and this is an evolution we really need to take hold of, Kim can slap me on the back of the head and say, Drew, just stop. Think about what you're saying for a minute, because our local ordinances won't allow us to do that. So while you're this great pie in the sky idea, let's bring it to reality so that we can create something that is actionable and is going to impact the community in a positive way.
I think, Drew, if I could just add a comment here, I think what you're really saying is GIS people still need to be technical, but we need to draw ourselves into the strategic realm as well, right? And not just the tactical thinking of how do I get data from A to B, or how do I create a map that looks good, or how do I create an application that tells the story I want to tell. And you have to start thinking about, who are my stakeholders? What are the data processes? What are the workflows that are in place? Who else needs this data? How can I build value in this data and make myself inescapably valuable, right? Irreplaceable, if you will.
Irreplaceably valuable.
And embrace what I call embrace strategy, right? Sometimes that's a little risky, but becoming that strategic thinker will help you, elevate yourself from being a GIS analyst or a cartographer and turn yourself into, that irreplaceable guy that always has good answers and thought processes about how we can tell our story better, what we can do to support our citizens, what we can do to support the core value and mission of our organization.
Absolutely. It turns us into valuable assets that are fantastic resources for all of the different organizations and departments and communities that we support within our localities, right? Because if there are times where I've been forgotten that I was the GIS guy because I was the map guy, but the conversations that were happening were directly related to GIS. My title was GIS director, but you came to me for maps.
Right.
Right. There's
nothing get a GIS person going more than calling him the map guy, right?
Right. But there's an inconsistency to that thought process, because it potentially means we're getting left out of conversations that we can add value to.
Mm-hmm.
and bring a more holistic approach to, because we understand how data is created, developed, managed, maintained, and shared. That is supporting all of us, not just maps. Maps are cool. I like maps. I like to collect
There
maps.
you
Right?
go. Rodney Dangerfield of IT. I love it. Call me sometime when you got no class.
Fantastic. Ooh, that's the kind of color we need, Jeff. I love it. Right. So it really forces us into this idea of data science, an interdisciplinary field that uses scientific methods, processes, algorithms, and systems to extract knowledge and insights from structured and unstructured data and apply knowledge and actionable insights from data across a broad range of application domains. We all use that. I don't know that I would recite that to anybody that says, Drew, you do GIS. What does that mean? Well, it's that. It's that, but it's differently, because I have to think about things differently. But we also have to identify that we all get these questions or these statements sometimes, right? Like, why can Pizza Hut find me and give me a piping hot pizza, but 911 can't find me?
Yeah.
We're using different data sets to identify location. I don't know how old theirs is. I don't know what information they're getting from your carrier, but 911's not getting it. There's a discrepancy in the matrix.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Or my favorite is, I've been living in my house for 2 years, but UPS still can't find me, and I can't find my house on Google. Can you fix it? No, I can't. I can't call Google and say, hey, Ed, 1213 North Main Street, it's been there for a couple of years. But people will show up to our offices with those questions, and they're looking for an answer, right? They're what they're going to get is not the answer they're looking for, but they will leave with an answer. They may not be satisfied, but we will try, right? But this concept of data science looks at big data, looks at data classifications, analysis, statistics, decision making, and knowledge, because we're looking holistically at the framing that is GIS in our communities and how it fits, and all of the data that's there. So while data science for Next Gen 911 is the title of this slide, is the data that you're using for Next Gen 911 only existing to support 911? No. Rarely, if ever, will that be the occasion, because you're migrating existing data sets that you have that are currently used to support valuating land, tax assessors, to identify members, of a certain park or club, Parks and Rec, community development. Well, we have to evolve that data to now support Next Gen 911, and think about other data sets that may exist in the world that could be beneficial to this process. And how do we integrate that seamlessly into what we have to support what we want? And this may be using different systems and sensors, like drones, like satellite, like Bluetooth light, like AVL, and mash all this stuff together to make it make sense to someone who doesn't beat their head against the wall because they can't figure out how to change the color red to fuchsia. Right? That's what we get paid the big bucks for, right, Fred? So this data science and this big data component really starts to show itself for Next Gen, because it is a significant change to our workflow and our process, and how we're being asked as GIS professionals to support this evolution. It throws the GIS professional kind of in a new swimming pool with some new sharks. While those relationships have existed for quite a while, because we typically know in GIS who's supporting public safety, we've never been asked to ask our data to support saving the life of someone, or have been held to a standard that requires me to turn a data correction around within 3 days, 3 business days. Let me clarify that, because I don't work on Sundays, right? So this is all leading to, we're on the precipice right now of what the future of GIS is going to look like. Think about how we're preparing GIS data right now to support next generation 911, from data accuracy, precision, the way we maintain the data, the timeliness at which we maintain the data, and now start thinking about 3D visualization and 4D visualization with things like voxel maps that are, I have a note about voxel maps, as 4D volumetric grid maps, right? So that you can measure space, right? It's all evolving to viewing data differently, looking at it in 3D and 4D, connecting our local data sets to VR headsets for our utility inspectors or our public works personnel, or maybe providing a heads-up display for our emergency responders that are responding to a multi-level unit that is on fire, or responding to a school that is in a state of emergency. What's the best way in a 3D environment to infiltrate this building? Because now we've integrated indoor mapping and, you know, cloud points, right? So the work that we're doing is really setting the stage very well for local governments to now have the most accurate data set about their communities than anybody else. And that is something to be proud of, because it shows the hard work that we put into collecting these data sets over the last several decades and started to integrate satellite data and drone data, deriving new data sets and new knowledge in different ways to really build out a better picture of what our reality looks like and help us make better decisions, not just for public safety, but for land conservation or land development. Because we're seeing things through a different lens because we've thought beyond the map now. We're thinking about data differently and how it really relates to reality, and not just how we need to make it look on a flat surface, where we start thinking about projections and datums and, oh, your datum doesn't match my datum, so now I need to figure that out, or just project them both differently so that they match. Well, we've interjected error now, so your representation of reality is skewed now because we've made something, you know, we've made the round peg fit the square hole because we needed to make a map. Well, we can evolve from that and make better decisions that are really going to accomplish the visualization and the storytelling component with the accuracy of reality that we really need, so that we know those decisions are as accurate as they can be. Right. And so it's going to open so many doors, right? This migration from 911 to next gen 911 is going to, at a local level, really start getting us to think about enhancing IoT at a local level, if you're not already thinking about it. Centralized data management solutions. So the ability to pull things out of siloed environments into interconnected space so that we're impacting each other in a centralized manner is really where we're going. And Next Gen 911 is opening the door for that, because we can see it. Now that the data is being used to support this, everyone benefits from it, not just 911. Improved data visualization, as I was speaking to, pulling data from different sensors that tell different stories or tell the same story better, more enhanced, are going to allow us to display that data differently. We start getting into the value of Z. We have all been talking about Z value in GIS for a long, long time. Well, it's fixing to be really important. It was important yesterday. Tomorrow, it may be mandatory. Are we ready to support that level of accuracy and that level of management? I don't know, right? We have to start having those conversations as well. Streamlining data analytics. Analytics not only to support specific environments or departments, but analytics that will support decision-making process across the entire community, that is involving public works, utilities, public safety, parks and rec, right? Building maintenance, reinforcing the value of accurate location information. 911 is really putting us in that position to not only think about how accurate our data is and what decisions we're able to make, but how often we need to maintain that level of accuracy, because we've all been in a situation where we've paid somebody whether it was part-time staff, vendor, you've done it yourself, you've gone out and you've collected data, and your decision was survey grade versus mapping grade, right? Mapping grade's cheaper, survey grade requires some more instrumentation, can take longer. So I'm making the decision based on how accurate my data needs to be to support the application I'm collecting the data for. If I'm collecting every street light in my community, for me right now, mapping grade's okay. Because if I can get you within 10 feet and you can spin a circle and see it, I'm good. Is
Just look
that
for the
good
light bulb
enough?
that's out, right?
So what, Jeff?
Just look for the light bulb that burned out.
look for the light bulb that burned out. Exactly. Look for the stop sign. You're in the area. It may be on the other side of the road, but there's a stop sign there, I promise you.
Right. And
then cross the 6 lanes of highway to go get your reflectivity rating so that we can assign a birth date to it. Right? It's great for that application, but is it good enough to throw into something that's going to help us streamline analytics, where we're wanting to really see how much artificial light we're producing in some of our neighborhoods that we're going to now relate to a potentially increased in crime rate, or the ability to find streets in dark corners around curves with trees and shrubs with no light, right? I mean, it's a rabbit hole I could go down for days, I promise you. It's literally Alice in Wonderland. But is it good enough? So I think the way that we think about the single capture of data and how accurate that is versus the repetition of the accuracy of the data that we need to collect moving forward is going to have significant impact, because it comes down to location. So mapping grade versus survey grade, that argument may go away as we're starting to leverage other sensors. It'll make it easier. It's an easier conversation, but it also brings to mind, how often do we need to check, verify, and recapture data that was collected at mapping grade to survey grade or a higher accuracy, because the data is now being used to support these different decision-making aspects of reality, right? So when is good enough good enough? It'll vary between application, but we're moving into this environment that requires us to create and maintain highly accurate geospatial data, not only for 911, but for new ways to improve visualization and analytics moving forward. Because let's be honest, the folks that are coming out of school now can do things that I can't do, or can do things I can do faster, right? I'll be the first to say, I'm not a programmer. I was never taught programming in school, nor do I think I have the brain to learn it. But I better find out who knows it, because that person's going to help me look like a rock star tomorrow, because of what they can do with the data that we have and help improve how we're collecting the data later. Right, so I know we're on a time limit. I didn't want to get too deep in the rabbit hole because I could, but what do you guys think of this concept, this evolution of the GIS professional that's really, I'd say forcing, not really forcing you to, but forcing you to think about how you're currently doing things now versus how you may support these transitions, starting with Next Gen 911 into things like AI and machine learning and IoT, right? It's a significant question that significantly impacts local government. I never thought we'd be in this situation because I wasn't looking that far ahead. But the reality is that's where it's going.
I think that's why it's appropriate to determine an evolution. In my 20 plus years, that's certainly been true for me, that the things I thought I'd be doing in my career, you know, I couldn't have even envisioned what I'm up to now. And I know that tells me that, you know, in the next 20 years, it'll be the same. So I have to start thinking, you know, out in front of tomorrow.
Exactly. And, you know, with saying that, it's thinking about it at different levels, right? It starts with the capture of data, the management of data, the distribution of data and where it's being distributed and how. Right? We think about where we've come in the past 15 years. We are in an environment now where creating data from scratch using point line or polygon is becoming less and less because we're extracting data from satellite imagery or from drones, right? That's way more efficient, can be more accurate, and it's repeatable, you know, with a consistent process where we're limiting how much error we're potentially interjecting because, you know, I didn't get any sleep last night, but I'm managing this data today. Well, right, I went RD, 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 DR, 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 right? Because I'm doing manual data entry.
Joe's comment is a really insightful one, and I totally agree with it. The maturity of the technology has brought the maturity of professionals to use it, and has brought the use of it and its data right into the forefront of other things, where other people now that aren't GIS professionals now think about things spatially and first or sooner than they would have ever before. And that's a great point. That's a good sign for the profession. And it's a good sign for us continuing to be working in a field and with technology that's very relevant.
That's a great comment, Joe. Thank you for that.
Well, and Drew, I would add too that it's just the evolution of, I think, IT in general. You know, we have web developers who don't have any GIS background, but the second they have to have some kind of reference to a location, they're putting maps and looking for the best map that they can. You know, their mind goes to Google, and then we have to reteach them that, no, we have better data.
Yeah.
And once you give them those tools, now everything that they're doing, they incorporate a map. So they're doing GIS without thinking. Or people are doing GIS and they just bring it up on their phone. They're not even thinking about it. They're looking for a location.
Yes.
And I'll piggyback on that, Fred, because you're right. Cell phones have been one of the greatest advancements for the GIS professional, right? Because more people are now aware of what GIS is without you having to say, I'm a map guy. But it's also dangerous in a way because folks that don't necessarily understand GIS the way that we do as GIS professionals have the ability to go out and collect data and assign attributes to that data. Oh, and change that data in apps like OpenStreetMap or Waze. Do you know what you're doing, and do you know the impacts of what you're doing? Or are you doing it because you can? In some cases, it's because I can and I need it done. This is the fastest way for me to do it, is for me to go and do it. Well, I get it and I appreciate the effort. And I applaud the enthusiasm to do that, but there could be impacts that are both positive and negative to that practice.
Yeah. Jennifer said not cell phones, computer gaming.
Hey,
I mean, it's true, right? The hardware to support it is part of it too.
I'll tell you. So
Jeremiah made a good comment too about being pressed into service and tragedy. It's a great insight, right? Like no better opportunity to shine than when all eyeballs are on a dramatic life-saving situation.
Oh,
sorry, Drew.
No, you're right. I mean, that's a great thing. I was gonna just do a little comment about voxel maps, right? The 4D volumetric cubes have existed for decades. Minecraft, if you ever operated in Minecraft, you're using voxels to build environments in Minecraft. We're starting to see that transition over to, you know, the real world outside of the gaming world.
My son's gonna be excited to hear that.
Yeah, tell your son he's been doing GIS.
I've been training him all this time for a job.
Exactly. You know, someone made the comment, you know, I'm not reading the whole thing, but I see COVID-19, and that really brought GIS into a different forefront for us, right? With the Johns Hopkins maps, you saw this new focus on data and accurate data to help identify story and trend and decision making. We've been saying that stuff for years.
Yeah, you don't even have to be a GIS professional to see that.
No, and I mean, there's two people get credit for that. the COVID virus and Jon Snow. Who knows who Jon Snow is? Not the one from Game of Thrones.
He doesn't wield a sword, right?
He may have had a
The
sword.
English guy that did the
Yeah.
thing in England with the
Yeah.
with the
Another public
stuff.
health crisis. Yeah.
Another public health crisis. Exactly.
right. Yeah, hell, that was. a
Ah, there
serious
you go.
one.
Just take the handle off the pump. Everything will be fine.
Take your hand off the pump. Exactly. Feel like we're living in that world right now too.
I think a year ago, that was the main message, right? Don't touch the handle on the pump
Well, and don't touch your face
or your face.
or other people.
Yeah.
Just hands off everything. Hands in your pockets. That's what we were told in school, right? Stand in a straight line and put your hands in your pockets.
Oh, memories. I think we're about done then, huh?
We are. Great conversation in here. As always, I really appreciate you guys at WLIA for allowing us the space to talk about things like this, the evolution of the GIS professional. You know, if we look at the chat, we see that it's a really fun topic to talk about and think about, because it's unlimited what we have the capability to do, especially now.
Yeah, as passionate as we are about 911, it's fun to nerd out about other things too.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate the forum here and good conversation.
And we didn't even talk about blockchain. We'll do that next time. So guys, thank you so much. If you've got any questions, we've got a couple of minutes left. I've also got my contact information on the screen. Feel free to call me or email me. I love nerding out on these things. I appreciate any opportunity to meet other GIS professionals that are passionate about GIS like I am. I know this group is. So let's just have a nerd out session one day. Throw topics against the board and see what sticks, right? All right, Kim, I'm not seeing any questions come in. So again, I'll say thank you guys for the opportunity in this space to talk about this topic. I'll look forward to the next opportunity.
All right. Thank you so much for coming today. This was a
Absolutely.
great talk.